Understand, when one encounters evil, there's an impulse to ignore it. So your first duty is to be an aware person, to try to notice things, to try to put the pieces together and make meaning out of what you're watching. Of course, if you do that, you will recognize evil as well as good. If you recognize evil, then you are obliged to ask the next question: what do I do about it? Not to just say, well, won't somebody do something, please? What will I do about it? Will I get involved, or will I ignore it? Will I speak out against it? Will I take action? Will I intervene? What kind of evil is it? What is the best response? All the while, in the back of your mind, whispering in your ear, is your sense of self-preservation. If you do this, you might get hurt. If you do this, you might get humiliated. If you do this, you are inviting the bully to come after you. If you do this, you may pay a price, a terrible price, that you can't even begin to calculate right now. What price will I pay for noticing and doing something against evil? And there are people who love you who say, well, don't choose this hill to die on. You got to pick your battles. You got to go along to get along. Are you the policeman of the world? Why must it be you that takes notice? They love you. They don't want you hurt. They see you as an end unto yourself, which you are. But you are also a means towards a greater end. If you take action against evil, you might lose. You might fail. You might get hurt, or worse, and it might be all for nothing. So this is a real question. But it's happening here. Antisemitism is popping out all over the place. What I love about liberals, and I mean it, no sarcasm, is at their best, liberals and progressives call us to be the people we could be. Call us to be the people that we would want to be, people who see the problems in the world and complain about them and try to do something about them. A good liberal will do that. That's why I think a healthy society needs liberals and conservatives, progressives and libertarians, all taking part with courage. But today, many liberals are being swallowed by a movement that invites us to return to racism. That's critical race theory. That invites us to return to seeing gender as more important than anything else. That's a return to sexism. That invites us to hate in response to hatred, to seek retribution in response for being wrong. And history and life is replete with examples of what happens when you go down those roads. You cannot deal with past racism by becoming racist. You cannot deal with past sexism by becoming sexist. You have to cultivate the truth in yourself. Not my truth. Not your parents' truth. Your truth. I expect that truth is different from mine in many ways. Last period, when somebody asked, well, you're very, very strong, Mr. Genorio, on the anti-Semitic thing, but what about homophobia? To which I say, you got to follow your conscience. The history of humanity is a history of anti-Semitism. The history of the Jews is a history of persecution. as regards the question, I want every one of you to develop your own ideas. What I want for you is to have the courage of those convictions so that you'll live those ideas, stand up for those ideas, be a force for good in the world as you see it. That's what I want. I personally don't want anyone persecuted for how they are, for who they were born to be. But at the same time, if you ask me, should it be a culturally normal thing to be any polysexual, homosexual, bisexual? Should we take marriage and make it an all for, one and one for all? You can have polygamy, polyandry. I don't believe that. I believe in civil unions for people who are different. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but to equate the fact that I have a complex and nuanced response to this question that does not march in lockstep with some idea, and to then just close your mind to me, and as has been done, call me a bigot, a homophobe, a racist, a misogynist. Who's being intolerant and who is closing their mind? I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want anyone persecuted. I want people to speak out. But today, if people speak out in a way that violates someone's sense of how the world should be, they get hurt. That is the Nazi way in the 1920s. Anyone who stood up against them got beaten in the streets or their property got damaged. Once the Nazis took power, the government became itself thugs in the streets. I believe in toleration. And if you think that makes me afraid of homosexuals, I'm not afraid of them or anyone else. Nor do I hate them or anyone else. Nor should anyone be called if they happen to deviate from a belief system. The problem with belief systems is that once you adopt it, many people stop thinking. They let the system think for them. They let the leader think for them. Adolf Eichmann was the Nazi who was most expert in the Jews. He spoke Yiddish. In the SS, he was the Jewish expert. He wanted to export the Jews to Madagascar. But when the war started, he took full part in what he was ordered to do. Ultimately, at the Wannsee conference, he was the instrumental person. And after Wannsee, he made the death camps function. He was the key guy who made it all happen. After the war, he escaped Germany through the Odessa network to Argentina, where 15 years later, in 1960, Simon Wiesenthal, the famous Nazi hunter, found him. Let Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service, know. Mossad kidnapped him from Argentina, brought him to Israel, and he is the only Nazi war criminal ever to be put on trial in Israel by Jews. This trial was televised globally, and many reporters were sent. Among them was a woman named Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt was Heidegger, the philosopher's chief protege, also his lover. She was a German Jew. She escaped Germany when Heidegger became a Nazi to the United States. She is a first-class intellectual who wrote a seminal book on the roots of totalitarianism. She, as a German Jew, as a philosopher of the first rank, and as a teacher, she taught at the New School in Manhattan, was invited by New Yorker magazine to go to Jerusalem and report on the trial of Eichmann. Her reports came back, but they were shocking in that they were nuanced. They weren't just reflexive, lockstep anti-Nazism. She thought about it and wrote about it, and her articles were collected into a book called Eichmann in Jerusalem. She was castigated by Jewish leaders who said that she was a traitor to her religion, a betrayer of her people, because she had a nuanced reaction. A movie was made a couple of years ago called Hannah Arendt about this period. And in the scene that you're in, as her job at the new school is being threatened, as she is being threatened with cancellation, she makes a public statement on her ideas, which I'm going to play for you now. Yeah, start